Check out what Shirley is serving up for this week's Meal Prep and Make.
Welcome to the Bisman Community Food Co-op. My name is Shirley, and today I am going to share with you one of my family's favorite soups. We love a really good creamy potato soup in the wintertime. It's one of my favorites to make. So the bacon that I'm using today is from Nourished by Nature, and he actually provides our co-op with pork, beef, and lamb. So I like taking my bacon, and instead of cooking it up in full pieces, I dice it up because that's how I want it in my soup. So I'm going to turn my heat on a little bit higher than medium because I actually do want this bacon to crisp up a little bit. And I'm just going to throw it right into my pot here, and we're going to let it start sizzling away. And then that bacon fat in the bottom, we will use to actually cook up our veggies that we're going to prepare while this is cooking. So our potato soup today has some beautiful colors going on with the purple potatoes and the white potatoes. It ends up livening it up, and anytime you cook with colored foods, kids absolutely love it. When you are cooking your potatoes for the soup, do not overcook them. You want to make sure that they are fork tender, but not mush. So our bacon is starting to sizzle away here, so we want to actually get the rest of our veggies that we're going to throw in ready to go in the pot once the bacon is done. So I do use a little bit of onion. You can do white onion or red onion, whichever you prefer, yellow onion, but you're going to want to dice up your onion. I like throwing in 1 or 2 carrots in the pot. The carrots I do peel. Potatoes, sometimes I peel them, sometimes I don't. That probably depends on your personal preference. These carrots, I'm also going to dice up a bit for our soup. The carrots add a little bit of an element of sweetness, plus, once again, a bright, vibrant color to the soup. Now, I'm a person that does not like my celery to be whole when I'm adding it into a soup. So I do end up cutting it in half, and then sometimes, depending on how big the stock is, I will cut it again, just so that I've got nice little small diced pieces to add to it. So we're going to add our celery and carrots and our onion right to our pot here. And I diced up a little bit of celery ahead of time. I always do use at least 2 stalks of celery in the soup. We're going to cook this in a saute form just until the onions and the celery start to get a little bit translucent. And then once that is done, we are going to add broth. I am going to use some of our Kettle and Fire regular chicken broth in here today. So we're going to add our broth in here. And if you were wanting to do this as a 1-pot soup and you had not pre-cooked your potatoes ahead of time, you can actually add your raw potatoes in here as well. When you're cutting up your potatoes for the soup, you want to make sure that you get them in nice bite-sized pieces. So we are going to go ahead and at this point add our potatoes that we already cooked to the pot. So I keep my broth and my liquids in here pretty tight to the vest so that you can see right now we end up with our, some of our potatoes are still showing here. That's going to change as we add the cream to it in just a little while. So what I'm going to do now is pop this over here and let it continue to heat. And while that's going on there, we are going to work on making a little bit of a thickener for the soup. So in order to do our roux, we're going to use a 1/2 stick of butter. So as we're letting this melt here, you want to wait till at least the majority of the stick that you've got in there is melted before you add the flour to the pot. So I just like stirring it around to kind of speed up the process a little bit. And then we're going to add equal amounts. So anytime your basic flour thickening roux, it's usually equal amounts of butter and your flour. And we're just using an all-purpose organic flour here made right in North Dakota. So you want to stir to incorporate that flour into the butter. Now, I mentioned that this is a creamy potato soup. The original recipe, when I first started making this soup, called for 1 cup of cream at the end. I have found, because a lot of times I don't use the roux, I use a full 2 cups. So I do use a full pint of cream in the soup. You will want to make sure that you add salt and pepper to it as well as you're going through the cooking process, either at this point or at the end to taste. We'll add our cream and roux to the soup here, and then just stir that on in. You want to heat this now until it is thick, and then if you want, you can add a little bit of chopped parsley to it, or parsley, totally being optional, is something that you don't have to add. It's great served up in your bowl with a little bit of finely diced up green onions, or you can add some shredded cheese to the top as well. Thanks so much for joining me in the kitchen today for our creamy potato soup.
And we will have the recipe posted online. Make sure you check it out there. Plus, lots more on the way. So,